Joining us now is Olabode Sowunmi. He is an oil and gas consultant. Thank you so much for joining us on the news tonight.
Thank you.
Let's try to make sense of this conference. We seem to have a lot of conferences, but we wonder, what they translate to. Let me ask you, the theme is accelerating energy progress through investments and innovation. Are we attracting enough investment in the sector as it stands? And what do we need to do differently if we are not doing so already?
Okay, first of all, to the first comment about plenty of conferences.
Yeah.
Typically, in terms of purpose, a corporate conference is an intellectual marketplace where you gather minds, thinking, and ideas and aggregate them into a place. So people come in there to find out what's the latest technology, what their peers are doing in the industry, and the related. You cannot have too many markets.
Okay.
So if you look at it, so what happens, why it seems that you have too many, is that people go to these conferences without a purpose, without an agenda. So it's like saying, I go to H-Medics, then I go to Wuse Market. What am I going to buy? No idea. So I can get fed up with that. So intellectual marketplaces are like that. For people to maximize it, they must have a purpose for going there, not just to go and meet and greet people and do window shopping. So having said that's on one side.
Yeah.
On the other side is that when it comes to investment and it's a nuance. So there is a science to attracting investment and there is an art to it. In terms of science, you talked about the investor wants to see things like rule of law, the fundamentals of economy and all that. But there are other things that an investor sees which attracts them. It is from the interactions between people, between the people who want to invest and the people who are attracting investment, that people perfect it and get the right solution. So anytime there's an opportunity to have a discourse, a meeting of minds between those who have the potential to invest and those who have the potential to attract investment, is always good news.
Okay, that's interesting. And is it a chicken and egg situation, especially when it comes to the issue of attracting investment? Because we're hearing that experts or investors themselves are saying ramp up production and then we will invest. You would think that if you invest, then we can truly ramp up, production, especially with a target of 2 million, that Nigeria is looking at.
So I think, this is now to my mind. I think we have been knocking on some doors for too long. So you cannot have, so in other words, there are a peculiar and particular set of people that we have been looking at, and we have been knocking on them for decades. So kind of like everybody's used to each other. Maybe that should shift a little bit, because there's money and funds in different clusters, in different places and similar places all over the world. If you go to New York, I used to work in New York for Ericsson, and if you go to New York, one major global investor is the IMF. But where the IMF office is, around that place, there are also investors. Some of those investors are people on the board of IMF, but because they're interested in certain investments that does not follow what IMF stands for, they go there as anonymous, and those people invest in other things. In other words, if you go there with a portfolio and you meet the risk assessment and you appeal to the risk appetite of those who are there, there are other places from the traditional places where we know that we should be looking at. There are people from Southern Africa, particularly South Africa, who have some amount of funds that could attract. There are places like Norway, so there are places. You understand? It's just that we are used to the same set of people, and they're also used to us. So we play games, and we don't really know whether they're interested and all that. Because typically, an investor does not look for a perfect situation to invest.
Right.
That thing is a myth. The people will invest. I've worked some interviews given to investors on the Wall Street. Some of them you can even see on YouTube, and they'll tell you that a particular investor said that whenever he's looking at an investment presentation, what he wants to hear, maybe not directly, not in those words, but what he wants to hear from the person making the presentation is that with or without you people, I will succeed in this. So that thing needs to come out either with a charisma, with an attitude, with something. And that is what they invest in.
Okay. All right. So it kind of brings us to my point, because Nigeria at the moment with this administration is pushing for a Nigeria first policy. And in the industry, oil and gas industry, we're beginning to hear that, the local industry, indigenous companies are rising. But then comes the question, and second part of the theme for this year, innovation. Are they truly filling the gap left by the IOCs such as Shell, ExxonMobil, and others, or are they just keeping the lights on? Are we innovative enough? Rising is one thing, but how sustainable is that? And are they innovative?
So first of all,
Yes.
when you talk about IOCs and all that, they have a legacy, they have competence and all that, but it is the people that actually make up those companies. In fact, it's the people that make up any company. It's the people that make up any nation. Some of all these companies that you're talking about, they are all products of IOCs. 90% of the people of one of the particular companies that is new here they are from Shell. So the idea that the name is not there is just a myth. But then the second part, which is the more fundamental part, is that those companies never left. They just moved offshore. And comparing what is available offshore with what is available onshore is like comparing a retailer and a wholesaler in simple terms. So they just moved to focus on the big fish while leaving you guys to, enjoy yourself.
At the lower rungs of the issues. Okay, so can we really achieve this 2 million crude oil production? Because we heard from the NNPC boss there saying, look, now that the pipelines are available, where's the product?
Okay, so first of all, what must be established as a baseline is that the infrastructure for the 2 million exists.
It's there.
Yes, it's not that they are trying to import it. If you recall, during the time of President Jonathan, that's immediately after they had the amnesty and all that, we were doing 2.5 million barrels per day. So it's not like they are going to invent new. So it is people who have ruptured pipelines, certain people who don't want certain things to work and all that. So what we understand is that from the oil that is available onshore, we can at least do about 1 million barrels per day. So if we had that 1 million barrels per day to it, to the 1.5 that we already have, we're still back. We're going to the 2.5, which we were doing about 10 years ago.
Okay, so it's not a pipe dream. All right, Olabode Sowunmi, oil and gas expert, thank you very much for helping us understand these issues around oil and gas. Thank you.